Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Josh Heupel gets a pass because of the quarterback situation this year, regardless of what happens. Yes or no? That simple. I think yes, he does. No, he shouldn't.
I'm going to say yes, he does. And yeah, I said already, I've already been on record saying he deserves a mulligan for this year. But the mulligan is, even though the mulligan is partially his fault, and I'm not here to deny that it's partially his fault because he went all in on the Nico thing and mishandled it. I'm not saying I'm not saying you don't put him on the hot seat next year. I am saying you don't fire him regardless of what happens this year. I will say that.
You don't fire him, but he's okay. Let's define having a pass as something different. Tennessee goes 7-5 this year. How about that?
Okay.
Is he on the hot seat heading into the 2026 season?
I think hot seat, yes. I would put him on the hot seat, but I would sit there and
That's
say
not a pass then, because he's not gone after making the college football playoff no matter what happens this year. That's aside from the Nico situation. Having a pass to me is you go into the 2026 season and everything's copacetic despite what happens this year with no Nico. That makes sense? We're kind of on different wavelengths.
yes, yes. No, I get what you're saying. I think Josh Heupel. Okay, from that perspective, I think if Josh Heupel goes 8-4, he's not on the hot seat next year. How about that? If he's 8-4, he's not on the hot seat at all next year. Not even close.
7-5.
See, with 7-5, it depends on how he. I know this is weird to say, but it depends on how he went 7-5. Because you can go. There's multiple types of 7-5. Like if
Let me take it a step further to describe this. Have a pass. If he goes 7-5 the next 2 seasons, is he gone?
Yes, I think he's gone if he goes 7-5 the next 2 seasons. I think
Caleb
if he doesn't show any signs of improvement over the next 2 seasons, he's gone.
Caleb says bank on it, 7-5, 2 back-to-back seasons, and Josh Heupel is gone. I will say that he should be, but there's no way in God's creation he will be. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Make the argument for me that 2 7-5 seasons and Tennessee doesn't make a change, because I think you're right, but I don't think you should be right.
Okay, the argument you could make is that if, say, hypothetically, they go 7-5 this year because of the whole Nico thing, and just say that they were trying to navigate NIL waters and things changed under them and they had to adjust and they had to audible. And so that's what happened in 2025. And then the argument in 2026 would be they had a rash of injuries. Okay, that's it. But if you go 7-5 in 2026, that's it. You got to go at that point. You can't go 7-5 back-to-back years like that at this point in year 5 and 6. You just can't do that. I am a believer that at a place like Tennessee, I've already talked about expectations before. You're allowed once every 4 to 5 years a 7-5, 8-4 style season. I mean, you are allowed that, I think.
Is Kirby Smart allowed that at Georgia?
No, but Philip Fulmer was allowed it. He went 8-4 in 94. He went 8-4 in 2000, and no one ever questioned it. I mean, no one ever thought that was a problem. You're allowed a rebuilding year.
Better bounce back.
Right. You're allowed a rebuilding year every 4 to 5 years if you bounce back the next year. Okay. That's where I'm landing with this. I think when Tennessee's rolling at their best, they're allowed a type of season like that. Because again, and we talked about this, Dave, as of right now. And again, this may change because of the NIL money and things like that. But right now, the SEC is still significantly deeper than the Big Ten. So these margins are so small and so narrow that, you know, if you're a little bit down talent-wise and you just get the bad draw of a schedule one year, you can find yourself 2 plays away from 11-1 and end up 8-4.
Derek, you got to raise your expectations, buddy. He says, I think we were looking at 8-4 or 7-5 with Nico, y'all. Ugh. Eesh. Can't do that. Ben, Says if that's, oh, I'm sorry. Ben says, Adam says 5 losses should be worst case scenario for Tennessee. Any more than that, it's time for change. I'm at 3 losses. I mean, I'm okay with Tennessee losing to Georgia and Alabama. Those programs are one's in better shape. One of the games is on the road. I can roll with that. But 4 losses, 5 losses. I mean, who's that fourth loss to?
So you're saying 4 losses is an automatic firing at any season whatsoever for a head coach?
No, I
after
said
year 5?
I said 5.
Okay, 5. Okay, 5. Look, if they lost 4 games this year, it would be to Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and then either like this year it'd be tough, but I talked about yesterday, Syracuse would be the fourth to them. I mean, Kentucky wouldn't upset them, Vanderbilt wouldn't upset them, or Mississippi State wouldn't upset them.
Listen, I'll go back to what you said yesterday. If Tennessee loses to Syracuse, season is not a success. Period. In the discussion.
Even if they win out.
Well, they're not going to win out if they go set. If they
do know Ohio State lost at home to a 6-6 Virginia Tech team the year they won the national title.
Yeah. Ben says I'm not happy with 7-5, but I'm not saying it's time to fire Heupel. 6 or 6 worse, and nobody will be happy. Bender of Strings points out there's no rebuilding in the portal era. That's a fair point. Should you have a down year? You pointed out Philip Fulmer's years. Those seasons were unacceptable in retrospect because Tennessee had more talent. They got outcoached in those particular seasons. Tennessee had more talent than probably all but 1 or 2 teams on their schedule. That's where I think Tennessee should be. And I guess that goes back to our earlier discussion of recruiting. Tennessee should be in that situation, Caleb, in which they roll the ball out there and they beat 9 out of the 12 teams they play.
Well, this year, because they play outside of the top 3, they don't have that tough of a schedule, even though I think Syracuse is the most dangerous beyond that top 3. The rest of the SEC teams they play are garbage. They play an almost Indiana schedule in the SEC this year. As far as, but like to go back to the Philip Fulmer thing, Dave, you got to think about like bad breaks though. Let's talk about the first 8-4 season Philip Fulmer had. Peyton Manning's freshman year, he lost his 2 starting quarterbacks for the year in the first 3 weeks. And then he had to go to a freshman that he didn't plan on starting at all that year.
Listen, let's take out the injury thing because obviously, I mean, if Joe Aguilar and Jake Merklinger get hurt and you're with George McIntyre, then all bets are off. You know, you just want to see McIntyre develop like Peyton Manning did as a freshman. So let's take the injury thing out. Bender of Strings said in the portal era, 9 wins should be the floor at a program like ours. More than that, we better have an epidemic of injuries. Totally agree. Less than that, he meant. Totally agree. Totally agree. That's where the expectation should be. And I'm disappointed in Tennessee fans for not having those high expectations. Just don't get.
I mean,
turning into Kentucky. Is that where we are?
No, but again, I don't think that Tennessee is at. I don't think Tennessee, even if they're rolling at their best, can match what Nick Saban did at Alabama. Well, nobody can match what Nick Saban did at Alabama. That's impossible. But I don't think they can match Kirby Smart's production at Georgia either. I mean, I don't think Tennessee's ever going to be on that level.
How many consecutive seasons did Mark Richt win 10 games?
How many consecutive seasons did Mark Richt win 10 games?
Yeah.
Let's say
to me, Mark Richt's record should be the absolute floor for Josh Heupel.
Mark Richt's best run was 4 straight years of at least 10 games from 2002 to 2005. After that, he never had more than 2 straight seasons of at least 10 wins throughout.
But didn't he have 10 win seasons altogether?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, but that one of those was at Miami. But yes, he had 10 win seasons altogether.
Okay, so 9 10 win seasons at Georgia. Josh Heupel's hungry, at least he should be. Tennessee is primed. They've got the NIL money, we think, sort of maybe. They have all the facilities in place. They should go on a Mark Richt-like run at the bare minimum. Bare minimum.
But even in a Mark Richt-like run, that would fuel my argument because Mark Richt was every 4 to 5 years was good for a 4-loss season. He went 8-4 his first year. He went 9-4 in 2006. He went 8-5 in 2009, 6-7 in 2010. 8 and 5 in
But if
2015.
South Carolina doesn't go after Kirby Smart, Mark Richt's probably still the head coach.
Yes. Georgia was very content with Mark Richt, by the way. And Mark Richt, to his credit, was a big integrity guy, so he wasn't going to make some compromises to win that Kirby Smart was willing to make to win. And by the way, I don't blame Kirby Smart for that. I mean, you do what you got to do to win. But
Derek says, ever since I've listened to you on the show, I've told you that recruiting is not there. I told you we didn't trend wildly enough with skilled players when Nico signed to produce top-tier players, top-tier results. That's true. I mean, let's face it. We should be talking about the Nico effect right now that continues at Tennessee even without him. We should be saying Nico didn't have the impact as a player, but look at the impact he had as a recruiter. Now, is that on Nico? Is that on Tennessee not taking advantage of it, Caleb?
It's a combination of the two. It's partially on Nico, but it's also partially on Tennessee not being able to take advantage of it, because to be a recruiter, Nico's got to, like we've talked about, we said this before, put up the video game numbers, and Nico didn't put up the video game numbers as a starter at Tennessee. Half of Tennessee's recruiting cell is the video game numbers, isn't it? Under Josh Heupel.
Great
and
point.
Look, that is where we're not talking about, like, Tennessee's not going to recruit under Heupel the way they would have recruited under Fulmer, in the sense of they're selling a program to get you to the NFL and develop you and all that. No, what they're selling is, come play for Josh Heupel, you'll put up video game numbers. So for Josh Heupel to keep this program afloat, he's got to put up video game numbers. And by the way, Dave, I know he knows that. That's why he gets a little bit restless in games and wants to try to force things down, because he knows his selling point is letting players put up video game numbers.
Agreed.